Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Infinity, and this is Magnetize Yourself, where we talk about life, love, spirituality, and of course, the law of attraction. In today's video, we are doing something really special and different here on the channel, because I announced a couple days ago that I was going to be opening up this reading to make it a bit more personal and direct. And the way that I was going to go about doing this is by creating a post on Patreon so that those of you who have been supporting me through Patreon have the opportunity to submit a question. And this post was open and available for submissions for about 5 hours. If you did miss it, because I know that wasn't the longest window of time, then keep in mind that most likely this will be something that I'm doing into the future. So this will most likely not be the last opportunity to participate in this if this is an idea that you enjoy listening to. So let me know in the comments how you like this kind of new style of reading, if you'd like to see this again in some point in the future. This is really based on the premise that we're all really well aware of by this point, which is that we are all so connected, and that when one person is going through an experience, even when it seems so personal, and sometimes even when that person can feel so alone in those experiences, they aren't actually going through it alone, because we are all going through similar collective shifts. And yes, of course, there are different waves, different timelines, different kind of split off sorts of pathways in these collectives. But I thought it would be a fun idea to channel into specific threads of energy, actually using your questions and submissions. So even though a specific person or group of people, depending on how many questions or submissions I end up incorporating into this reading, but even though those submissions are sparking these conversations and reading videos, please keep in mind that wherever you are in the world, whenever you're listening, regardless of whether you submitted a question, your energy is being felt and responded to. And it's very likely that if you felt drawn to this video, some message that comes through here will actually connect or resonate for you personally, even though, again, this reading video may have been sparked by a specific different individual. And that's just the beauty of this interconnectedness that we all share with each other, really on planet Earth globally, but especially within this collective here on YouTube. So thank you so much to those of you who did submit through Patreon, and of course for those of you who have been supporting me there as well. And I will be going ahead and actually selecting the questions here in real time, which I was really deciding which way to go about doing this, because of course I could have pre-selected the questions, but I feel there's a kind of collective energetic momentum that begins to pick up when I hit the record button. So I really wanted to actually select those comments in real time. Please keep in mind as well that if you were on Patreon and you saw that I disabled the comments, that's because the window of time was only until that evening at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I did disable the comments, which does make them no longer visible to you, but they are still visible on my end. So I'm able to see all of the comments here, and I'm going to be choosing at least one of them, again, maybe multiples of them, organically here in real time to read into with the cards and channeled messages that want to come through. So I also want to quickly say, I know this intro is a bit long, but it is the first time that we're doing this style of video, so I feel like there are some clarifications, a bit of groundwork that I want to set here first to kind of set the tone. And one of the clarifications is I will be removing any names or usernames when I share these questions, and I also may paraphrase or rephrase some of the questions as well. So do keep that in mind, but the idea and point of the questions will still remain intact. Okay, so the first comment that I'm going to respond to, it's very interesting because I actually was a little late to disabling comments. I think I was 20 or 30 minutes late, and one of you left a comment and said that you were still past the deadline, but hoped that you could still participate and that you were on the West Coast and just got off work. But the question is, I was wondering about soul contracts. If twin flames have a soul contract and the divine masculine breaks this contract, doesn't that go against the whole divine destiny theory? What happens to the divine feminine? I'm in this situation and it's incredibly confusing and upsetting. So it's interesting. A lot of factors around this are interesting. First of all, the fact that I really felt guided to select this question, even though typically I wouldn't take a question after the deadline. I feel like that in itself speaks to something that someone is going through, where it's almost like there's going to be some, I'm hearing it called like a magical portal, or like an exception to a rule, like something unexpected created that opens up a pathway that you may have not imagined previously, either in your life or in your connection with a specific person. And I'm not sure why that's coming through here, but I feel that may have been a little bit of a side message here, not necessarily in direct answer to this question, but just in general for someone listening. Secondly, I do want to say that it makes sense that this situation for you would feel confusing and upsetting. And I want to take a moment to validate that. For those of you who are divine feminines listening and to have found yourself in a similar situation, the reason that this dynamic is so upsetting when a divine masculine counterpart, especially if this is a twin flame connection, when they make free will choices to break certain parts of their soul contract, the reason it feels so upsetting, sometimes even to a degree that is unexplainable to people around you, that people will not fully be able to understand unless they're on a similar journey, is because you're feeling the upset of a timeline shift. Essentially, you are feeling that there was this original pathway that your soul had pre-orchestrated with this other soul that is now being diverged in a different direction. This can be a bit unsettling on a soul level to readjust to. And so what you're feeling is not only valid, but it's really inevitable because it's coming from a sort of unsettled feeling that you're getting on a soul level. And so with that being said, I do want to touch on this because this came up in a recent reading as well, where I spoke on a divine masculine who had broken their terms, so to speak, of a soul contract. And to channel into this, I want to talk a bit more about soul contracts. So soul contracts are agreements made between souls prior to incarnating here on Earth. And sometimes these agreements can be deeply personal and individualized. So it can really be between your own soul and your higher self, like what your higher self desires to experience in this lifetime. They can also be contracts or agreements, and often are, between you and other souls who will be incarnated on Earth simultaneously. So you could think of these as kind of like the original timeline, the original pathway that we decide to follow that creates almost like a track in this lifetime, a rough sketch or a rough outline of what we intend for this life. However, as humans who incarnate on planet Earth, part of what obviously makes us human is our ability to exercise free will, our ability to create our own judgments, to make our own decisions, to build our own lives, to create our own realities in this lifetime. And so you could think of these soul contracts almost like this unconscious guide that tends to veer us in particular directions at this unconscious level in ways that we may not even be fully aware of. But because we are also human with this free will capacity, we have the ability to amend those soul contracts throughout this lifetime consciously. So we can decide whether or not we want to continue moving in alignment with a specific soul contract or whether we want to experience something different. So when I said that a divine masculine was breaking their terms of a contract, what I meant is they had, and for some reason in this case, maybe in the case of the person who asked this question, I'm picking up a lot of heaviness, trauma, and baggage potentially on the divine masculine side. So when they go through, especially a lot of heaviness in this lifetime initially, although they may have planned that as well on a soul level, at times it can be more overwhelming to them than they expected when they entered this lifetime. For some reason, I'm getting that may have been the case for this specific commenter's divine masculine, and maybe if many of you relate to this as well. But even though they chose those karmic circumstances so that they could heal specific karmic patterns, maybe within their family growing up, maybe within society, sometimes once we're actually human and experiencing those things, it can be heavier than we thought it was going to be when we were a soul deciding to come here. And in those cases, for some reason, I keep getting for this person and their divine masculine, that baggage, that trauma, and those karmic dynamics weighed on them in such a way that they made some conscious decisions to break certain terms of their soul contract with this divine feminine, at least for the time being, which of course, for the divine feminine creates a lot of this confusion and a lot of this upset, which is completely understandable. And I want to share as well really what happens to a divine feminine, because it sounds very heavy for the divine feminine, and it is. If you've been through this where you have a very powerful soul contract with another soul and they choose to veer off in a different direction, it can be really heavy. It can be really painful. But what I want to share is that this does not affect your ability to personally align with your highest vibrational timeline. And that oftentimes these are detours rather than permanent misalignments between yourself and the other person. Now, of course, you know for yourself whether or not you still desire to reconnect with this divine masculine at some point in the future. And I'm by no means saying that you have to choose to do so. But what happens for the divine feminine when the divine masculine makes choices to break their end of the soul contract is the timeline sort of splinters off. And there are multiple new different timelines presented to the divine feminine that can actually create a lot of hesitancy within her at first. This can be somewhat confusing in and of itself. Usually, when this occurs, when the divine masculine breaks his end of the soul contract, there is this initial time of feeling confused, unsettled, upset, disoriented. This can very often feel almost like an ego death for the divine feminine. This is because it's almost like you have to imagine those new timelines are being reorganized, being prepared, but not necessarily yet fully open to you. But when they open up, what begins to happen is you start feeling this pull in new directions as a divine feminine, a pull that you never felt before. This might be to fulfill a personal purpose. This may be a pull towards a soulmate. I'm getting a wave of chills. I know this is connecting for someone. I hope it's reaching you if this message is for you. By the way, I know this commenter says they're from the West Coast, and I keep getting that for a group of people listening here, the West Coast may be significant for you as well. Anyway, though, so these different timelines open up to the divine feminine, and the way that you will sense them is through that passionate pull within you. You will actually feel yourself viscerally being drawn into these different timelines, And at first you may hesitate because it's going to be a little bit confusing to have such a timeline shift occur, to have these new options and opportunities opening up to you. But as the Divine Feminine, you must learn to trust that passion, to trust that pull within yourself into the new, whatever that is for you. And again, sometimes this can be you living a very independent life for a period of time where you really self-actualize in ways that are meaningful for you, where you fulfill some kind of childhood dream, or you do things that just really light you up and make you feel a deep level of fulfillment on this planet that you've never felt before. Other times, these are romantic soulmate options that enter your life that you feel that passionate pull towards, maybe after a period of time with a twin flame where you thought you would never open yourself up to being loved again. And again, the key here is to trust that pull within your heart, and also to give yourself the permission to move with it, to give yourself the permission to explore new timelines opening up for you that feel good for you, that feel aligned for you, because that good feeling and that passion is that timeline trying to magnetize you towards an even higher vibrational version of yourself, and you can trust that instinct within you. So I really hope this was helpful for whoever had this specific question. Now, I actually am going to be answering more of these because there are so many beautiful questions here on Patreon. Like, there are over 263 comments, which I'm assuming most of them are individual questions. So I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you who shared your questions on Patreon. And I'm going to go ahead and actually create a few more videos, at least one more, but probably a few more mini readings like this. So they won't all be released all at once, but this one should come out at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today on Wednesday, as of when I'm recording it. And then I'll probably be spacing them 8 hours apart after that. So if you do want to stay tuned for future reading videos like this, then be sure to subscribe to the channel. And also, of course, I would love to have you here as part of this beautiful community on YouTube. Leave me a comment. Let me know how you liked this style of reading, or if anything connected for you personally. A huge thank you especially to the commenter who shared their heart and soul in this comment. And that vulnerability and authenticity is so beautiful and so powerful, not just in answering this question, but in the way it reaches and touches so many others as well. And I can say that for every single commenter who submitted a comment here. Even if your comment isn't selected, I still feel from a quantum perspective, it's really energetically shaping these readings. So feel free to join on Patreon if you do want to get notified via email when I do post another kind of post-open submission. I'm not sure what exactly to call it yet. It's still so new. But when I do this again, I will be sending out an email notification to Patreon users. And I believe that even if you just join on the free tier on Patreon, you may still get notified when I make that new post, although you can only actually access it fully from the Soul Tribe tier. So you can still stay updated, at least even with the free tier, I believe, on Patreon. I will double check on that. But anyway, I know this has gotten a bit long-winded, but I am so excited to be connecting with all of you in this way. I hope this was helpful. I hope this answered questions that many of you may be holding. You can also follow me on Instagram, by the way. My Instagram is at Magnetize Yourself. And if you would like to access my library of subliminal meditations through my app, Sound and Soulful, I know they haven't really come up here in this reading, but it's my favorite manifestation tool. I personally use them every single day and have been for years now, which is why I created this app to begin with. This has been such a passion project for me. And I know that many of you are seeing results from these subliminals as well. So if you haven't yet tried them out, you can do so by clicking the link to download the app underneath this video. I'll be leaving it in the pinned comment and description box. I've actually recently added many new subliminals there, like a lot of them. I've been really creating more recently. Thank you to all of you who have made suggestions for new subliminals, which is another feature in the app, by the way, you might not know about. You can actually suggest new subliminal ideas, which of course I can't necessarily get to all of them, but I've been able to create several new subliminals recently based on these ideas, and I will continue to do so. So that is a feature within the app as well. And I do have subliminals for love, relationships, money, career, happiness, success, and so many other things as well. There is a lot to explore there. And the subliminals I've created are really designed to deeply reprogram your subconscious mind in a positive way and help you manifest all of your desires in life. So you can try them out completely free, see how they work for you, see how the energy begins moving in different areas of your life in just a few days. And you can try it free for 7 days when you create an account in the app. And again, all of that information is below. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out this video here so that I can get on to the next question. Stay tuned for that next video, and I will see you here again soon.